I'm going to switch the order for this next question. So Mr. Henny will answer first. One of the experiences you've had was as district attorney, and as one term, serving one term as district attorney. And there were clearly some people who felt that the job, you could have handled the job better while you were in that office. So what did you take from that experience? What are people's misconceptions about your term as district attorney, and how big of a role should that play in your candidacy for judge? Are they related, or is that something that's in the past?
Well, I don't think they're related, but that's up to the voters to decide. Let me begin by saying I'm very proud of the time I served as district attorney. I thought I was a very effective district attorney. I thought we did a lot of good things in that office. I prosecuted a number of high-profile cases successfully, and I thought we did a very good job in that office. People should remember, I think, that I came into that office in a highly charged political environment. There were critical issues in that office before I took over. When I went into that office, every single member of that staff was on medication for stress-related disorders, every single one of them. And I came in, and we were grossly understaffed. There was a great deal of hostility between the district attorney's office and law enforcement agencies, and my job was to turn that around, and we did. And if you go back and look at the November issue of the Portage Daily Register, you will see that the Daily Register endorsed my re-election campaign because I had done a very effective job of turning that office around. Now, balance that against the bad politics of the time that I had to deal with. I was elected over the opposition of a sheriff who didn't want me in that office, and a judiciary committee that didn't want me in that office. I have to say, in all honesty, I don't think they cooperated with us very well. They didn't give us very much support or backup. I was constantly lobbying them for more assistance in our office. We were grossly understaffed, and everybody pretty much agreed with that, but we kept getting the same response: as there's no money, there's no money, there's no money. The day after I was out of that office, there apparently was a lot of money because the staff grew by about double. So there were problems when I was district attorney, but I don't think there were problems of my making, and I thought we were making very good progress in resolving those issues, but we didn't get a chance to do it. But I thought we were headed in the right direction, and as I said, I'm real proud of the time I spent as district attorney. And you can't control the political environment. That is just what it is, and you deal with it as best you can.
I don't know if you wanted to respond to that. I mean, should that experience play a role in people's thoughts when they're, I don't know, when they're trying to decide? Is it?
I would say not unlike anything else that either of us do in a public realm. That's certainly going to be a factor that people would consider. I know for a fact that neither of us are perfect, and neither of us claim to be. We certainly are going to have made mistakes in what we have done, and we will make mistakes going forward. But I think that in this kind of race, those are the only sorts of things that the public really has on which to rely. Not just the mistakes, obviously, but I mean the public versions of what we're doing, because so much of what an attorney does doesn't happen in the public eye. Both of us have had the unique opportunity to serve in roles that are very public in our capacities as attorneys, and people have been critical of both of us at various times for various things, and people have celebrated what we have done at various times for various things. But in a race like this, where we can't promise to do anything, we can't promise to take a position about a particular issue, those are necessarily going to be the kinds of things that I think people rely on.
Just to follow up to that, is there something that you can think of that a mistake that you made is from a legal, not necessarily like a legal standpoint, as far as was against the law, but I mean, is there something that you would kind of look back on and say, I would have handled that differently now? Is there something that sticks in your mind or something that pops up that,
Well, there certainly are. I mean, a lot of times, though, it's I think in looking back, some of the real things that I would have pointed to have been issues about how things have been conveyed, and maybe not necessarily that there was something wrong in the process or a mistake, but how those things get conveyed to the public sometimes is a challenge. Whether you're the district attorney, whether you're the defense attorney making a closing argument in a high-profile criminal case, or serving in some other public capacity, I think that those are the things that sometimes I think you wish you had back every once in a while, is that you were close but not quite, and so the message missed its mark a little bit. Whether the intended audience was a judge or the general public, those are the ones that that I think about the most. Is, gee, I wish just a half a phrase here or there might have made all the difference in how either whether my argument was successful to the judge, or whether a particular situation was conveyed to the public or someone else.
did you just, okay, I'll keep going, I'm sorry, I thought, all right, I appreciate that, thank you. Let's move on to a different topic here. Most of the voters will never appear in your courtroom, whoever's elected. How should residents judge a judge? How would you know you're doing a good job? How will the public know that you're doing a good job if you're elected? And I guess we'll start with Mr. Voigt.
Certainly, it's a difficult task. It's a difficult task now to choose between us, because it is atypical in the sense of a political race. We're not running around having chosen a party affiliation. We're not taking positions on topics that could come before the court. So it's certainly going to be a difficult task. But I think one of the ways that citizens generally can do that, both now and in the future, is by talking to the people who use the system, talking to attorneys, talking to law enforcement, talking to folks in the district attorney's office and the clerk of court's office, people who are litigants. There are a number of people who spend a lot of time in the courthouse who don't necessarily appear because of a particular court case or anything else, but there are a number of people who are there who observe how efficiently the process runs, or can comment on that because they are there in some other capacity. Those are the kinds of people who I think would know the best, and those are the kinds of people who I think the world can rely on providing a window into this world, because it's quite difficult, and there aren't very many people who could take a week out of their lives and just come sit in the courthouse and watch what's going on. There are some of us who might think that would be interesting. However, the vast majority of the world would probably be bored to tears because the cases sometimes hop from one to the next. They're frequently canceled, something's canceled because it resolves or the like. So those are the folks that I think you would have to rely on to get a gauge, and those people who are in the system, who use the system on a very regular basis.
Mr. Wright?
I suspect that the less you hear about a judge, the more effective he's being, because people aren't complaining about what goes on in his courtroom. And he's probably not attempting to overreach the bounds of his office, as it were, legislating from the bench, or whatever people want to call that. So I think it probably is somewhat difficult. I think probably most people, in my experience, evaluate judges based on what they know of them in the community, how they interact with them, if they are in service organizations or their local church or whatever it is. People get a sense of what kind of an individual they are. I think we all have reputations, I think, within the legal community that our colleagues have developed about us, and fairly or not, they think we're very aggressive, or we're not aggressive enough, or we're not, prepared well enough, or we're over-prepared, or we over-try cases, or we under-try cases. I mean, attorneys develop those sorts of feelings about each other, and I think those kind of radiate out into the community too. And so I think that most of us, even in private practice, you have a degree of a public profile in the practice of law, particularly if you're in court a lot, and if you're in front of juries a lot, and if you're engaged in a lot of different courtroom proceedings. People develop attitudes about you, and some of those are well-founded. Some of those may not be so well-founded. There may be a lot of things. I go back to my experience as a district attorney. I think I caught a lot of criticism from people who didn't understand what we were dealing with and how we were trying to deal with it. So some opinions people form of you may not be fair, but I think that's what people look at, is what kind of an individual do they think this person is. And I think as we're campaigning, we're going out, we're meeting people and shaking hands and talking with them about our experiences and our candidacy. And I think they evaluate us on this stump, and they hear what we have to say, and they give us a good look, and they think, well, I think he could be a good judge, or I'm not so sure.